Lesley Dolphin, all about Suffolk.
BBC Radio Suffolk.
Now we have pulled up that sofa. It's a race this Friday afternoon, I have to say. I'm going to relax now because this is where we have a chance to have a bit of a longer chat with someone. We've got Rebecca Elliott with us today. She's just written a children's storybook featuring her profoundly disabled daughter, Clemmy, who I can actually see, and I'll wave at Clemmy in a minute or two. Rebecca says we shouldn't just talk about the negatives of disability, but also the positives. And in some of the writing that she sent me, she says, since having Clemmy, I've been let in on a little-known secret. Profoundly disabled people are awesome. So I think you are going to make a lot of people sit up and think a bit this afternoon.
Absolutely, I hope so. Hello, I should say first. Thank you very much for having me. But no, absolutely. That's my big thing about having Clemmy. It's taught me a lot of things, but mostly that disabled children are fantastic. The best thing.
We'll talk, we haven't got lots of time to talk about it, and it's obviously quite a deep subject to go into. So we will talk about it in a bit of detail in the next hour. But you basically are coming at things from a whole new angle, which is very refreshing.
Absolutely.
And you've done a lovely book, and it's just published, I think, isn't it? Just about published, isn't it?
Just launched yesterday.
Just Because. So
right.
It's just sort of tell us what it is.
It's a picture book by Lion Publishing, and it's called Just Because, and it's about my two children, Toby and Clemmy. And it's a very positive, funny, fun take on their relationship. And yeah, it's just basically I want to get the positives across, and it's written not for disabled kids, but for all kids, really.
But for anyone. Absolutely.
Yeah. And amazingly, it's already getting amazing reviews and accolades from people. As you can see, the quote on the front from Jacqueline Wilson, and it's just quite stunning, really.
Deserves a place on every bookshelf.
Well, that would be nice, yes. For our bank account, that would be nice. So, yeah, no, very exciting. So,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk lots more then after the news. I'm going to throw some very quick questions at you, which I do to everybody at this point of the programme, because it tells us a weeny bit about you, okay. Like whether you're decisive or not for a start.
I was going to say, my brain's not working very fast, so go on.
That's all right. Illustrating or writing, which do you prefer?
Writing.
Watercolours or pastels?
Oh, neither. Pastels.
Country or town?
Town.
Smart or casual?
Oh, casual.
Shopping or walking?
Well, walking.
Heels or flats?
Flats.
Gardening or cooking?
Can I go for eating?
Yeah, you can, because that moves very nicely onto fish and chips or roast beef.
Oh, fish and chips.
You see, we ask very
Most
deep
definitely.
questions. We'll talk lots more after the news.
You make me want to sing about love. Slow this ride.
Isn't that lovely? That's Rumour here on BBC Radio Suffolk, and a song called Slow. We're going to be talking then to Rebecca in the next part of the programme. She's my guest on the sofa. The book is titled Just Because, and if you just read the synopsis about it, it's about Clemmy, their profoundly disabled daughter, and about Toby, who is her younger brother. And the book is, my big sister Clemmy is my best friend. She can't walk, talk, move around much, cook macaroni, pilot a plane, juggle or do algebra. I don't know why she doesn't do these things, just because. And this heartwarming picture book tells a brother's love for his sister. So that's the synopsis of the book. And as you just heard when we were talking to Rebecca, she believes we should talk about disabilities, people with disabilities, in a very positive way rather than sometimes the more negative way that we do. So a lot of food for thought. Listen on, it's a beautiful book. So we'll chat more to her. We haven't talked much yet about Oneness, but I'm sure I will put that right. I promise I will before we finish the programme. I know we've got several people to talk to. We've got Ron at the Lakeside Camping Park. We've got Frank Reed, who's written books as well. So we'll do all of that in the next hour.
With Lesley Dolphin.
Yeah, with you for this hour through till 4 o'clock. Don't forget Rachel then sitting in for Foz. All the news of the day between 4 and 6 o'clock to see you home. We've pulled up the sofa. We're going to chat to Rebecca Elliott. She's a children's book writer and illustrator, and she's just written a beautiful book called Just Because. And it's all about her two children, Clemmy, who's severely disabled, and her son, Toby. We're also going to be talking about Oneness. That's how I meant to say it. The village near Stowmarket, because that's where Dolphin's Dart has landed today. Daryl Hall, John Oates and Man-Eater, 8 minutes past 3. With you through till 4. This is meant to be when we relax. It's a bit like a race through the programme this afternoon, as always. I'm trying to squeeze far too much in. Talk about oneness. We'll talk about Churchill's speech in about 25 minutes' time. But I want to devote the next few minutes to chatting to Rebecca Elliott. She's written or painted. I never know how to put together. What's the phrase for this? Because you've done it all,
I've
haven't you?
constructed a book.
You've made a book.
Written and illustrated.
A book. It's Just Because, and it's a delightful children's picture book with just some words in it as well. Something that you do, and you've got other books, but this one, I think it's going to catch people's attention.
I hope so. Yeah.
Go on, tell me all about it. Where do we start?
Where to start? Well, I mean, I've been illustrating books, children's books, for about 8 years. It's not what I studied, but that's what I've been doing.
No, we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Philosophy.
But yeah, I've always wanted to write them as well. And sort of last year, I finally sort of plucked up the courage, I suppose, to start actually writing as well as drawing. And I've written 3 books, and very lucky that all 3 of them have been picked up. But the one that is closest to my heart and that is sort of getting all this interest is Just Because. And I wrote it about my kids, Clemmy and Toby, who are gorgeous. You can see that I brought Clemmy with me, and I think you'll vouch for me that she is gorgeous.
She's lovely.
I didn't bring Toby because he would have completely run amok and probably destroyed the entire studio.
He's 2.
By now. He's 2. He's very much 2.
He's a little boy, so
well.
he wouldn't have sat still.
Yeah. And I don't know, the way they interact together kind of was inspirational, frankly, and led towards a book kind of naturally. It almost wrote itself, to be honest. So.
Because, I mean, the difference with the book, although you would say it shouldn't make any difference, or it shouldn't be the thing that makes the importance, but it is,
and that's fine, yeah.
Is that Clemmy is profoundly disabled.
Yes.
And so it's quite unusual
Yes.
for her to be featured in a book, which is what you're saying it shouldn't be, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I hope eventually it won't be. Scope has run this campaign called the In the Picture campaign, and they've campaigned for more disabled kids' characters to be in picture books, and that kind of set the ball rolling. And I heard about this a couple of years ago, and certainly there are a few more books out there, but still nothing that covers severely disabled, profoundly disabled kids. Nothing that I've seen anyway. I'm sure there are probably a couple out there. I don't know why, really, because they're great, these kids. But I think there is a fear in a lot of illustrators and writers, understandably, a fear of offending, and it is sort of delicate territory, and you know. But obviously, I don't have that fear because I've got Clemmy, so that's why I kind of just dove straight in, really.
Before you had Clemmy, had you really had any contact with anyone who's profoundly disabled?
No,
and that's probably why it isn't featured, because it isn't
exactly.
a norm, is it?
But absolutely. I wouldn't have ever thought of writing this book if it hadn't been for Clemmy.
Tell us how the book works, how the story goes.
Well, it's written from the point of view of Toby, about his older sister Clemmy. And he starts off by, as I think you said earlier, by basically saying, my older sister Clemmy's my best friend. She doesn't do much. She doesn't walk around much. She doesn't make macaroni. She doesn't pilot a plane. I don't know why she doesn't do these things, just because. And then he basically goes through his arguments as to why Clemmy is the best big sister in the world. So he says she's a lot like a princess, really. They don't have to do a lot, just sit and look pretty, just because. She's got an excellent wheelchair, which again I think you'll vouch for. It's a very, very funky wheelchair. Which
and I bet he's jealous of it as well.
Oh, absolutely. He sits on her lap, and in the book they go off to the moon in it. And of course they do that in real life as well. Although he says they didn't go to Jupiter as well, just because. And all these things. And then there's a thunderstorm, and he gets very scared, but Clemmy doesn't, because she likes big noises. So he comforts her. She comforts him. And like all good children, they end up snuggled up in bed together at the end and napping nicely. So yes, it's quite a simple tale, and it's very much not about her disability. It's just about them having fun, and it's quite funny, I hope.
And you are quite passionate, because I think there's going to be an article in one of the national papers next week that you've written.
That's right, yeah, in The Independent on Tuesday, hopefully. I've been writing for various sort of magazines, so it's amazing the stuff that's sort of come out of this book. Just because, to me, profoundly disabled children and people they're amazing, and they're wonderfully positive. And if we do hear about them in the media, unfortunately, it's normally a case of a sort of quite a sad tale of the parents kind of ploughing on despite it all. And yes, they love their child, but they've got to cope with it. And there is that. And believe me, I could rant on with the best of them about the lack of social care and respite and all the rest of it. And, that does need to be talked about. But also there is the massively positive side in that when you sort of get over the news that, your son or daughter is massively disabled, you then start to see their wonderful qualities. And, so
I think
she's just a massively positive thing in my life.
But I think that's lovely because it's refreshing, isn't it? And it almost gives you permission to let go of the angst, the grief,